Did you miss me? Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back, everybody, and welcome to a relaunched version, as you can see by my tan skin, coming back from a nice tropical vacation from the Caribbean. Welcome to another edition of the Spin Zone. I'm your host, Spin Doc. It's been a while. And I really, really missed y'all. So, ready to get back to a whole bunch of great content, great free plays, free analysis. I got 3 pitchers today. I got a whole workup for all of them, whole bunch of stuff to talk about. And as I promised you, I have a new segment to talk about today, starting to kick off the fantasy football season. For those that don't know, and I'll mention this again when we get to it, is that for as much as I play strikeout props and MLB, etc., I do play fantasy football just as heavy, if not heavier, have been for 20 years, high dollar leagues, keeper, dynasty, everything in between. So fantasy football is actually probably where I got my start in what you would consider like sports betting. And like I said, I've been in leagues that have been anywhere from, office leagues, yes, but up to like thousands of dollars in prize money and so forth for the better part of 20 years. So have a segment that I think that you guys will like, that'll help you get ready for your fantasy football drafts. But before we get going with that, normally we talk about what we learned yesterday. Obviously, there have been a few yesterdays since we reconvened, so we will skip that part. But I do need to mention that this show is being brought to you on behalf of the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please go ahead and give us a subscribe if you don't already. And also follow me at SpinDoc Sports on X. Like the video, share the content, everything in between. It helps you get access to all of our stuff. We do appreciate the love as well. So if you haven't yet, please go ahead and do that. And we would greatly, greatly appreciate it. We got a few people in the chat here. Just wanted to give a shout out to. I have missed you all. Kid Keon, welcome back. Thank you so much. It was a great vacation. As you can see, I got some sun. It was a great vacation, great time with the family. For those that don't know, the trip itself, so this year was a bunch of things combined. So it was actually the month of June was my wife's birthday. It was in a month. It's our 20th wedding anniversary, and it's my son's graduation. So all 3 of those things converged at the exact same time. So we decided to take a big trip to kind of celebrate all of them and all of the good that we've had in our lives. So that's why it was longer than we usually go for, because we were celebrating 3 things kind of all at once. So, but very happy to be back. And was up to Eric J. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you being here. Welcome. Thank you, Mario. Yes, it was very, very safe. Interesting point. Funny story. If you saw in the news about the dad that jumped out off the cruise ship to save his daughter, and thank God actually did, who fell off of a ledge. That was actually on our cruise ship. It wasn't the cruise we were on. It was the cruise immediately after. So the Disney Dream was the ship that we were on. We've been on that ship many, many times. Beautiful ship, beautiful staff. Can't say enough nice things about them. But if you saw that in the news, that ship was the one that we were actually on the cruise before. So we got off, other group got on, and thank God everybody's okay. If you haven't seen that story, look it up. It's crazy because I have no idea how they survived that, but thank God that they did. And Cover King saying, what up, Spin? Welcome back, and thank you so much. Thank you for joining. Cover King's on a heater right now. That is good to hear. I hope that you all have been on heaters since I left. As always, all I care about is that we win and the books don't. So thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody who is watching this on YouTube, on X, etc. But we do have 3 pitchers to get through today. This was actually the graphic I'm about to show you So, because I love you guys so much, and because obviously we haven't had a show in a while, so I decided to make the same charts that VIP gets for all three of the pitchers that we are covering today. So you guys are going to see exactly what VIP sees for these three pitchers. Obviously, if you want all of this content every single day, no matter what, you can contact me or go to Win the Day VIP and subscribe. We have daily, weekly, monthly, etc. Everything there for you. One last thing before we get going, trying to wrap FanDuel. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And glad to have you back as well. And the same thing with LJ from H-Town. Let's cash indeed. So let's get on with it. The first pitcher that we have to talk about today is an early game, Mr. Yuri Perez. And I'm going to bring up the chart here in just a moment. And we have Yuri Perez, the righty, striking guys out at a 19.4% clip and walking guys at a 13.9% clip. He gets the Twins at home today at 12:10 p.m. So this game is going off pretty soon. You have an over of plus 108 at 5.5 and an under of minus 136. Now, this was run, as I said, before the Twins finalized their lineup. So this was run with the projected lineup. And based on what the actual lineup that I see, I do see Buxton is in, Larnach is in, Castro is in, Correa is not. So that's going to factor into our decision here. Lee is in, Wallner's in, Lewis is in, Bader is in, and Vasquez. So from this projected lineup, we have two changes. We have Bader and Vasquez at the bottom, and we have no Correa, and we have no Jeffers. Now, again, this is going to factor heavily into the decision that we make here, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So you do have Yuri Perez, and you have this kid who's got some really good stuff, and he does have a pretty decent four-seam fastball, even though his whiff rate isn't that high. He does have his slider is probably his best pitch, and that's going to play a factor as well. It also has his highest whiff rate. Now, the problem that Yuri Perez has had over the course of, well, really his two seasons in the majors has been walks. And so Perez overall for his career in MLB does have a 9.2% walk rate. That's been really bad this year. It's 13.9%. You just can't do that if you want to strike guys out or if you want longevity in Major League Baseball. Now, which is really weird because he spends 50.2% of his time in the zone. So if you look at his pitches on a spray chart, what it means is that when he misses badly. It's not a situation where he's trying to clip corners. He either pounds the zone or he misses very badly. Now, there is no walks prop that I can find as of this moment for Yuri Perez. Normally, it's set at about a 2.5, and normally it's juiced to the over. And that's especially true because he has walked. He's averaging 2.5 walks per game, and he has walked two or more guys in each of his first four starts. Now, what you have to look for the Twins for this one is, number one, what is their zone contact like? And number two is what is their overall swing and chase rate? So for those of you that are unfamiliar with this chart, I'll just go through it real quick because there's going to be one for each pitcher that we're covering today. First thing is up top, you have the three main pitches that the pitcher throws. If there's a guy that throws four pitches pretty much in equal sequence, what I'll do is I'll kind of split it and try to break it down to the most off-thrown ones and combine two like pitches. If not, like with Yuri Perez, it's usually just four-seam, slider, and curve. He does have a sinker in there, but a sinker, for those, again, that don't know, is really just a sinking fastball. So it's not usually a two-seam. It's four-seam is normally a two-seam, but for purposes of this, I do like to run what are his out pitches along with his main setup pitch. So for Yuri, we have the four-seam, the fastball, or the four-seam fastball, the slider, and the curve. Next is you have that the Twins, it's not projected anymore, with 4 lefties, 5 righties. These are his strikeout percentages to both of those in like situations. The zone percentage is the percentage of time that he does spend in the zone with all of his pitches. Going down to the hitters, you have all the hitters, and what do they bat? The Z and C are the two that I focus very heavily on because this is comparing their swing rate in the zone and outside of the zone to Major League Baseball average. So a 0 means that they're at average or within a few percentage points of average. A 1 means that you're a little bit over. A 2, means that you're well over. -2 means just the opposite. I try not to get into percentages for this because guys have seen different numbers of pitches. What I do try to figure out is just what is their overall swing tendency. You have their strikeout percentage on all pitches over the last 15 days, along with the team. And below that is Major League Baseball's average. This is for all of Major League Baseball. Then you have the whiff percentage to each of the main pitches that Yuri Perez throws. What you'll see under whiff is that those pitches match up with the 3 pitches that are up top. So you take the whiff percentage to those pitches that he throws. I'm trying to put the guy in the exact situation that he's going to be in today. Then the big one for me is the contact rate. This is their overall zone and chase contact rate. So you can see a swing profile. For example, Byron Buxton swings a lot in the zone, makes contact just slightly under league average. That means he's going to swing aggressively. He doesn't chase as much, but when he does, he doesn't make contact. So that's what this means. The versus SP and K percentage, that is the overall strikeout rate against that particular pitcher. K percentage is if there's enough plate appearances to be meaningful to list what the K percentage is, I will list it. Normally I use 6 or more because that would be 2 starts or 2 games against that pitcher. A couple other things here. You can see the umpire below and the umpire's tendencies. These will light up in color if it's above or below MLB average. Sean Barber is not. He is a very, very neutral umpire. So the last thing here is what is the pitcher's strikeout percentage when he gets ahead in the count versus when he gets behind. Obviously, as you can see, most pitchers have a discrepancy, but Yuri Perez has a very, very poor strikeout percentage when he gets behind in counts. So what we do is we take this and we apply it and we say, okay, Yuri Perez is going to throw these types of pitches. He's going to be in the zone 50.2% of the time. So we see that Byron Buxton does swing, for example, 80.5 more often than not in the zone. He does have a good, solid whiff percentage to each of these pitches. He does have a lower than average contact rate in the zone. So that gets me to my grade of saying that he's probably going to strike out 1 time. So we go down this list, and the 2 that are not in this lineup, which is going to be a big, big deal for us, as I said before, because this is projected, is Carlos Correa, who has a high zone contact rate, chases a little bit, but makes good contact, doesn't have a strong whiff percentage against any of the pitches except kind of sort of a slider. So I graded him as a 0.25, which is the lowest grade that I give. I never give anybody a 0, except for extreme cases, like every now and then Stephen Kwan's got a 0, every now and then Luis Ariz has gotten a 0, depending on the situation. But normally 0.25 is the lowest that I'll go. And then what I'm saying is that there's a 25% or less chance that this particular player will strike out today. So Correa was at 0.25. You can also see Jeffers down here. He does take a lot in the zone, but he makes a lot of contact. And Jeffers has just had an ultra low strikeout rate, but he's not in the lineup today. So he was another 0.25. These 2 today will be replaced by Vasquez and by Harrison Bader. So when we go to the Twins, what I also have to do then is, because I had Yuri Perez down for 5.5, potentially without those 2 in. Now, Harrison Bader does swing below average in the zone. He's got about pretty average swing metrics. He does make chase contact. He's got a decent strikeout percentage. I think that him and Correa can more or less cancel each other out. It's not a 1-to-1 ratio, but they can more or less cancel each other out. When you have Vasquez, though, Vasquez does have a very ultra high zone contact and a very ultra high chase contact. So you probably get a little bit of a benefit to Perez from having Bader in for Correa, for having Vasquez in for Jeffers. It kind of washes itself out. So not exactly a huge difference or variance here. So with these guys in the lineup, which now it's been confirmed that because the guys that I wanted in were Larnach, because as you can see of his whiff K percentage in general and his contact rate when he chases, because you can see that Yuri Perez allows 69.1% contact when guys chase against him. That's not good at all. This is why his curveball only has a 7.4% whiff percentage, which, by the way, 7.4% is abysmally bad. So that's why, is because he's not getting guys to miss when they chase. However, the Twins today, with the changes in their lineup, it's actually, I think it's the same exact, is that they do have 5 guys who missed when they chase. And as you can see, multiple of these guys are at or below contact for zone as well. So you can see Wallner, Larnach, and Buxton are very, very easy K candidates for Yuri Perez. I went back and forth with Willie Castro because he does swing more than league average in the zone. He makes contact right at average, doesn't make contact as well when he chases. His overall metrics are just kind of average. So I hedged between a 0.75 and a full strikeout, but he could very easily strike out as well. So you have 4 guys in the top 5. And now, actually, I think with the projected lineup, yeah, it might even be in the top 4. No, they moved Lee up. Never mind. So 4 guys in the top 5, 6 that can get a strikeout. So when you have a guy like Yuri Perez, who right now his outs are projected at a 15.5 juice to the under or a 14.5 juice to the over. So they're saying he's going 5 innings. What this means is he will likely face Buxton. He'll likely face Buxton, Larnach, and Castro 3 times. Everybody else twice each. After that, it gets kind of murky. So so I can't put Wallner, for example, even though his contact metrics are atrocious. I can't put him down for more than 1 because he's probably only going to see Perez 2 times. Buxton, his contact rate in the zone, which is where Perez operates, is, I mean, but Buxton can always be a multiple strikeout candidate just because of how aggressively that he swings. However, it's hard for me with some of the metrics that Perez has been being put up to put him for anything more than 1. But even still, you have 3, potentially 4 strikeouts here from this top 4, and you're taking Correa and Jeffers, who have been 2 of the lowest strikeout guys on the team, out. So what that tells me then is that he would have to get Lee, which Lee's zone contact would indicate it might be a little bit tougher. He would have to get Royce Lewis, which that is doable. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. Or he would have to get one of the new guys that are in. Bader would be my most likely candidate because of his zone contact rate, and he takes pitches in the zone. So what this all adds up to right now is that this line has moved since coming out. This morning, it was the over 5.5 was plus 108. Now you're getting into the territory of plus 125, plus 115. I don't find that there's a ton of value here in the under for Yuri Perez. The reason being is because it is a day game. It's a move after a night game. It's a moving day, and his hits are down at multiple books. BetMGM and Caesars both have his hits down at a 3.5 when they've been running at a 4.5. We also have his earned runs, which have been a 2.5 juice to the over, is now heavily juiced to the under at minus 155 is the best price you can find. On BetMGM, it's even worse. It's minus 190. So what this is telling me is that Yuri Perez is probably going to have a good start. So there is a lot more value on the over here at the 5.5 than there is on the under than paying minus 136, which is the best price on FanDuel. You can even get it in some places at minus 160, minus 150. The FanDuel price is a little bit concerning. It's not something that would raise like super alarm bells, but it's a little bit concerning because it's not quite a pick-me line, but it's generating towards that. It's trending towards that territory. There's also, you don't normally see, even for day games like this, you don't normally see a 24-cent difference between the sharp book, which is FanDuel, and the more public book, which is, say, DraftKings, at for an under like this. And so the others modified their line almost right after the lineup came out, which is weird because you have Correa and Jeffers. Neither one of those were strikeout candidates. And you got two guys in where Bader's a little bit more of a strikeout candidate and Vasquez and Jeffers kind of even each other out. So what you're going to need from this one is you are going to need a strikeout from Buxton, Larnach, Castro, and Wallner. You're going to need one from each of those guys because then if you don't, then you're going down and you're starting to get into expecting him to get Lee, France, Vasquez in for Jeffers, and all of those guys have 88% zone contact. It's a tough ask. So for me, if you're going to go on this one, what I would do is I would take a half unit on the over 5.5 at plus 125, which is the best price I can find on DraftKings. I stopped just short of saying that would be an official play just because the rest of the Twins lineup, if he doesn't get those guys, is going to be very, very tough to strike out and have been very tough to strike out. But the lineup is in the exact place that you want it. And you have the high K potential, the high potential for strikeouts, and the lower contact guys up top, which means that there's a potential that Perez will face them 3 times each. It's almost for sure, unless he just gets shelled, which the line says he won't, then he'll face Buxton, Larnach, and Castro 3 times. Wallner, it's possible, but he is batting in the 6 hole, so I would figure Wallner for 2. They moved France up ahead of Wallner, so that's going to be another tough get. So for Eury Perez, I would either go a half unit on the over 5.5, or I would probably pass on this one. What I also might do is to take a look at the Twins' first 5 team total under. The Twins offense has just been absolutely fucking abysmal lately. We went 2 straight games. Granted, one was against Tarek Skubal, but 2 straight games without scoring a run. And even last night, barely, only put up 2. And now the line is set where with the 3.5 hits or less allowed is that there is a little bit of value here on the Twins' first 5 team total under 1.5 as well. So and I would much rather take the first 5 team total under 1.5 at plus 120 versus Eury Perez's under 2.5 earned runs at minus 155. Reason being is, yes, you get an extra run, but the books are also saying that he's only going to go 5 innings. So I would much rather save the extra, save all the juice and not worry about the extra run. Because my guess is if they don't score 3, they ain't scoring 2 either, because the Twins offense has been anemic. You also have 2 of their better hitters in Correa and Jeffers who are out of the lineup today. That's my overall take on Eury Perez. I got a few chat things to go through here real quick. I got Mario. Welcome. Thank you, Mario. Oh, that's right. Mario was already joined, said Sharpie was holding it down while you were gone. Yeah, I listened to Sharpie's show a few times. Listened when I could from where I was at. And as always, y'all know I trust that man explicitly, trust his opinions, trust his takes. So, yeah, Sharpie knows his stuff. And Eric saying, any thoughts on Festa? Yes, I'll get to Festa at the very, very end here. Black Thor, welcome in. Thank you so much for reposting this. Appreciate you. Eric saying the walks are 2.5 plus 120 on DraftKings for Perez. So I'm assuming I'm assuming if that's over 2.5, let me see if I can find it here. Because it wasn't out when we went. It wasn't out when we went on. We got walks for Perez it's actually moved down now. So it's actually moved down. It's heavily juiced to the over. So the over 1.5 is minus 205. The under 1.5 is plus 145. I'm now seeing that at a few books here. So normally in games, so in the 2 games this year where Perez has only walked 2 guys, is that he does have 5 and 6 strikeouts. Both of those are against the Braves and against the Pirates. In the games where he walked 3 or more, he has 0 strikeouts and 3 strikeouts against the Diamondbacks and the Nationals. So that gives me a little bit more confidence in the over 5.5. The other thing you can do is you can always wait to see if you can get a 4.5 live, because I would like 4.5 a lot better. Or if you really want, even though I think that the juice on it is pretty gross, it's -170. You can put, say, a full unit on 5+ at -170, take the potential reduced payout. They all have the same relative value. It's just, where are you taking your risk? Are you taking your risk in your wallet, or by paying up or for potential lesser payout or more juice, or are you taking it with the extra strikeout that you're going to need? I think that all of them have the same relative value. I think 5+ -170 has about the same relative value as over 5.5 for a half unit at +120, whatever you can get it at. And let's see, Cover King's saying he's got a half unit on Bassett, 5Ks, May 4Ks, 16 over the last 18. All parlays have cashed. Very good. So I'll leave that up for a second if you want that one. And Justin, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate you, my guy. And Andrew, welcome back as well. Appreciate you. And yes, very, very good to be back. Thank you so much. Vacation was wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Cover King saying Wu dropped at a 5.5. Wu's actually not starting tonight. They are moving him back. So he's pushed back, and Logan Evans will start today. If you're talking about tomorrow, that might be, maybe that's what you're talking about, but Wu will start tomorrow, not today. Berg in the house, and I've been talking with Berg a lot because he's in VIP. Cardinals offense have the Twins beat. Well, against the Pirates, they do. Against the Pirates, they do. But they were supposed to feast yesterday, though. They were supposed to feast. If you're in VIP, you know what I'm talking about. ES Gooner, welcome back, saying the first 3 innings total is 2.5 -120. That seems doable because Marlins suck too. That they do. Festa has had some good starts. I'll cover Festa at the very end today when we get to other looks and other stuff. So that is all of the info that I can give you on Yuri Perez. So we will move on to the next guy. And actually, these two, the third pitcher I was going to cover tonight was going to be Wu, but then obviously I saw that he got scratched, so he will be going tomorrow. But the second pitcher we'll talk about is Robbie Ray. Robbie Ray, the lefty, is striking guys out at a 27.5% clip, walking guys at a 9.5% clip. He gets the Diamondbacks tonight at 9:40 Eastern. And you have an over 6.5 at +110 and an under 6.5 at -145. You have some line variance here. You have some books hanging a 5.5, at least you did as this morning, and you still do. You have some books hanging a 5.5. Actually, I think DraftKings is the only one now. Everybody else has moved it to a 6.5, which is actually good for me because that plays into where I might want to go on this one. So right now you have the under at the under 6.5. It's heavily juiced. But what I'm hoping for is that we get actually down to a 5.5 for this one, because as you can see here is if they go with projected for this one, and that would be if they go analytical and run all righties, is that I'm coming up with 6, and that's with a few high strikeout guys in the lineup. What I'm hoping for is that we get a little bit of a different projected lineup. I'm not convinced that this will be the projected lineup. Obviously, Ray did see the Diamondbacks earlier this year. He saw them at home on May 13th, got them for 7. Pitched 6 innings, gave up 7 hits and 3 earned runs, and I believe walked 3, but still managed to get his 9 strikeouts. That is the Robbie Ray experience. And that is why, in absence of Blake Snell, he gets the title of the experience. Now, with the Diamondbacks lineup, is that at the bottom of this lineup is what I'm most interested to see, because you see up top here with Ray spending 50.5% of the time in the zone, and you do have a number of Diamondbacks that do chase. Reason why that's important is you can see down below that Ray only allows 46.6% chase contact. So when you chase against this man, it is normally not good for you. So the Diamondbacks do have 5 guys under league average in chase contact. And this might be a lineup that is a lineup of extremes, meaning that you have a lot of high contact guys up top and a lot of really iffy guys down below, with the exception of Gino Suarez, who you'll see that 1.25. I call that a 1+. I think Sharpie calls that a 1+. And what that means is that I never project a guy to strike out 2+ times. It's always difficult to say, hey, he's going to come to the plate 3 times and he's going to strike out twice. That doesn't happen as often as you think, even for high strikeout guys. What happens, what I normally put a guy for is I'll just put a little bit of 0.25 kicker up top because it does modify the overall total and saying that there's at least a 25% chance that he could strike out twice. So Gino Suarez batting in the 4 hole and batting cleanup is what you want if you want on the over for this one. But what you really want, if you're looking at an over on this one, is what you really want is you want these bottom 3, because Tim Tawa, Blaze Alexander, and James McCann, all 3 below average in zone contact. Chase at league average or more in the case of McCann, and all 3 are under in when they do that. So then what I have to look at for Robbie Ray is, because he can be the Robbie Ray experience, is he going to be in long enough to face these 3 guys, even if this is the projected lineup? And what I see for Robbie Ray is that his outs are at a 17.5, which is what they're normally at. There's enough juice at a couple books to make me think that he's for sure going to go 5. He could go 6, but probably not any more than 6. If he goes 6 innings, chances are pretty good that he's going to face these guys 3 times. So what I also have to look at for Robbie Ray is, especially because of what happened last time too, is his walks. And I got to see if I can find a walks prop right now for Robbie Ray, because there wasn't one when I made it this morning, but we might have one now, like we did for, yes, we do. We do have the 2+ walks is at -200 for Robbie Ray. 3+ walks is at -160. So what they're saying is that he is going to walk 2 guys. It's pretty heavily implied that there's going to be 2 walks, and that there's so if he's only going to walk 2 guys, then what that tells me is that he's probably going to go closer to 6, which means he will see this bottom 3 times. So when I originally looked at this line this morning, I thought that I might want to be on the under, but after seeing what the projected lineup is going to be, I might change my mind and I might want to go over. And what I told VIP this morning explicitly was that I'm going to be talking about Ray on the show, and that it will be very, very lineup dependent, because if you get these 3 guys at the bottom and he faces them 3 times, that's potentially 4 strikeouts right there. You also count Gino Suarez for 5, and the pathways to 7 are just endless if that happens. So that's what I really, really want to see. I mean, Marte, Perdomo, Gurriel are going to be up top most likely. I probably went a little bit high on Gurriel at a 0.75, factored in the past history pretty heavily because he hasn't struck out much lately. So he can probably hover between a 0.5 and a 0.75, but the real key is at the bottom. And if you get Tawa, Alexander, and McCann, and you get Suarez batting in that batting cleanup, you're going to get 6 for sure. And that 6 is a minimum baseline. Then I want to see how the line moves, because there are many, many pathways to 7 if that happens. So that's the best picture I can give you right now for Robbie Ray, because it really depends on how the Diamondbacks run their lineup. And the last time that they faced him was just a little bit different because of some situations that they had at that time, because Corbin Carroll was healthy at that time. So Corbin Carroll did bat. You did have Grichuk in, you had Naylor in, you had Gurriel, you had Tawa in, you actually had at the very, very bottom, you had Jordan Lawler in, who hasn't played in a while, I don't think. So it's probably, actually, he hasn't played since May 28th. So he obviously is not going to be in tonight. But you have a few variances in this lineup, and the variances here are who bats for Lawler and then who bats for Carroll, because they could go lefty lefty and they could go Pavin Smith. And even though it is a lefty, if they go Pavin Smith, that is probably going to be about the same as what Blaze Alexander would be. You have a couple other options that you can have here, because you can potentially look at running Jose Herrera. That would be good for the under. You can potentially look at Thomas. That would potentially be good for the under as well because of his zone contact. So there's a whole bunch of different things that the Diamondbacks could do. I wish that I could give you an accurate projection right now of what will happen with Robbie Ray, but it is going to depend on what the lineup suggests. But if this is the lineup, what I would do is, even though I know the actual numerical projection is 6, is that I wouldn't be opposed to taking a shot on the over 6.5 for a half unit at plus money, just because of how high the strikeout potential is, just at that bottom of the lineup. Now, if we get different guys in for Carroll and in for Lawler, and we get the exact same lineup, then I do reserve the right to change my mind to modify, because there's a lot of things that could be in flux with this Diamondbacks lineup tonight. So this is what I'm going to watch all day. If I do happen to get a lock on something that I feel very confident about, I will post it out on X. So that's where we're at with Robbie Ray. And yeah, Berg saying Lawler's back in the minors. Which given the stats that he put up when he was up here, he probably should be. So, all right, that will be Lawler, and we will close the pitcher portion of the show with the other side of the game, Brandon Pfaadt. Again, this was supposed to be Brian Wu, but did end up, but obviously he's not going tonight. So we will go with Brandon Pfaadt, the righty, who's striking guys out at a 19.1% clip, walking guys at 5.6%. He gets the Giants tonight. And this game goes at the same time, same umpire, same everything. You have an over 4.5 at minus 136 and an under 4.5 at plus 108. So Pfaadt is an interesting case, because Brandon Pfaadt has, so when you look at his overall metrics, averaging 4.24 strikeouts per game for the year, last 10 only averaging 4. And in his last 10, well, he's hit this 2 times in a row. It was against the Marlins and the Rockies. So he has actually hit this in just 4 of his last 10 starts, including 2 0 strikeout performances against the Nats and against the Dodgers. And the Dodgers were a team that he actually, against at least some of the hitters, has had decent past history against. The other thing that I'm a little concerned about here is that you have Pfaadt's overall, his innings or his outs projected are down. So he's averaging in his last, so his outs have been at a 16.5 or 17.5 pretty regularly, with the exception of a few. Now we're down to 15.5. Part of that could be because he hasn't gotten out of the 5th inning in each of his last 4 starts. Hits are set at 5.5, and his earned runs are set at a 4.5, at a 2.5. So I look at Pfaadt's overall numbers here. And obviously the past history against the Giants is not good. So 3 strikeouts and 29 plate appearances. But with Brandon Pfaadt, because he doesn't have great, because he doesn't really make guys miss in the zone. So his chase stuff is a little bit better. So what I'm looking for is, I'm looking for guys who chase, and across this lineup, I don't see a whole lot. And I also don't see a lot of guys that have chase contact under league average. In fact, you only have three, and Adames, Bailey, and Fitzgerald, with two of those being in the 8-9 hole. One of them, Bailey, having one strikeout in 7 plate appearances against Fott. So this just screams under to me, especially because of the outs being down, and it especially screams under if Jung Ho Lee is in, and if Wilmer Flores is in, and if they're batting where they're projected to be. This screams under to me, and this would be something that I would be more than potentially more than willing to take if that is the case. Now, if for whatever reason, if Flores and Lee don't play, then it becomes a much, much different story. So even though the raw projected number is 5.25, books are telling a different story. Books are saying past history will rule, and past history ruling means that 3 out of 29, that does not equal 5 strikeouts for Fott. The only guy that is there's 3 guys that are of concern. One is Devers, and I'm sure he'll play, and I'm sure he'll be up top, and I'm sure he'll strike out. And you have Bailey and Fitzgerald. So what I'm really looking for is I'm looking for Fitzgerald. I would prefer that Fitzgerald not be in. I'm sure Devers will be in. I can get by with Bailey because of the past history, but I would strongly prefer that Fitzgerald is not in. So if we get somebody with a higher contact rate in for Fitzgerald, then this becomes a very, very easy under situation, again, because of the past history. If for whatever reason Devers doesn't play, then it becomes even easier. But again, I highly, highly doubt that Devers will sit today. So overall, this is a definite look on the under for Fott. And it also is a potential look because of where his earned runs are, because normally at home he's 2.5 juice to the under. Right now it's pretty much even. This might be a lean on the San Francisco Giants team total over, first 5 team total over as well. So that's where I go with Mr. Brandon Fott. All right, we'll talk about a few other pitchers before we get to the other newer segment that I wanted to talk about today. And I do see a couple of comments about who's pitching with the Mariners. Yeah, it is Logan Evans. It is Logan Evans. Brian Wu got moved back to tomorrow. So Wu will start tomorrow. And so I saw a comment about Festa. And so Eric asked about Festa. And so I looked at Festa to begin with, and like as always with the Marlins, is that there's a few guys that I do look for, and those 2 of those 3 guys are in. 1 is Hernandez, 2 is Stowers, and 3 is Norby. And Stowers and Norby are both in, so they obviously are both strikeout candidates. They both have very poor contact metrics. At least one of them chases, so both very, very low strikeout candidates. However, the rest of the lineup is very, very iffy when it comes to striking out, meaning that they don't do it very often, with the especially Lopez and Edwards up top. So if I'm going to play Festa here, especially because so he's averaging 4.75 strikeouts per game in his last 8, which has been all the starts that he's had. He has hit 5+, which is his line today. He's 4-4 to this, so this line is set pretty correctly. If you're gonna play him, I would take a look at the under. I think that the under at plus money or very, very close to has a little bit more value than paying some juice for the over 4.5, because you have only 2 of the 3 that are high strikeout candidates in for the Marlins, them being Stowers, Norby, and Hernandez. If all 3 were in, I'd probably tell you just to leave it alone. But I think that I think that you can look at the under for strikeouts for Festa today, if anything. All right. And Justin saying, I like that. I think I like Giants too. Yeah, I do too. I think that I like the Giants team total maybe a little bit more than to win the game, but overall, I wouldn't be unhappy with just taking Giants on the money line either. So, all right. So for those of you that I mentioned it earlier that don't know, I play fantasy football very heavily, have for 20 some years, use fantasy metrics and stats, et cetera, as a means to generate prop bets for NFL, and play in multiple leagues that of high dollar value and have for a while. So fantasy football, if strikeouts are like my science, fantasy football is my passion. And so I wanted to introduce a new segment, which we're going to run once a week. I'm going to try to run it once a week on Thursdays as we get into training camp and into drives and into draft season. And it's called "You'll Probably Thank Me Later." And I say probably because there are a number of guys that will go throughout training camp, or even before training camp starts, for those of you that are going to draft early, that will go underreported, underutilized, undervalued. And there's always a guy that just seems to come out of nowhere. And it's like, wow, whoever could have predicted him? Well, if you were in VIP 2 years ago, I mentioned a guy before Rams training camp started that was getting a lot of looks and a lot of buzz and showing a lot of promise from the Los Angeles Rams coaching staff. And that guy was Mr. Puka Nacua. And so while I'm not going to sit here and just pat myself on the back because I nailed Puka Nacua, what I am saying is there are several factors that usually play a part in what generates a guy that can really have a ton of value and be overlooked in drafts. The other reason being is because most people that are going to be in your draft are going to be using a couple things. They're going to be using magazines, which printed like a month or two ago, which that all those rankings, all of those projections, all that stuff is so stale by the time that you go to a draft. If that's you, and I'm not trying to hate on you, I'm just giving you some advice right now. Don't use a magazine to draft because they're printed months before anything of meaningful value happens with NFL teams. There's no reports on mini camps. There's no reports on OTAs. There's no reports on workouts. None of that. Doesn't factor any of that into account. It just takes into account past seasons, past history. Doesn't take into account anybody that they signed off the street in training camp or trades, blah, 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 blah. If you're going to use anything, just use a ranking sheet. But a ranking sheet also doesn't factor in a lot of things that happen and a lot of situational things that give a guy opportunities to play and to shine. So what I wanted to do is to cover guys that are probably going to go underutilized, undervalued, overlooked in that space and give you some tools to potentially use that individual or individuals for your draft. Now, am I sitting here going to say that these guys I'm going to be talking about are absolutely going to be studs and you should just get them at all costs? No, I'm not. What I'm saying is the situation is right, and I'm going to keep a heavy eye on them in training camp because the situation is right for them to have a real good year and produce over value of draft position for your fantasy football team. I realize that most people watching this and most people that do fantasy football don't do auction drafts. I love auction drafts. I personally think it's the purest form of fantasy football that there is. I love auction dynasty drafts. Those are what my main leagues are. However, I do participate in multiple snake drafts to just and study ADP endlessly. And really, you're not looking for a guy that is going to be like just this boom, like unbelievable. Like I said, I pat myself on the back earlier about Puka Nacua. Normally a guy doesn't star that much over his average draft position. Normally what a guy will do is he will outperform his average draft position by a round or two. And that's what you're looking for. You want a guy who will outperform by a round or two, and you want to do that multiple times over the course of your draft. Likewise, you want to stay away from guys who will underperform by a round or two for their draft. And so those guys are overvalued. They're typically the guys that are a lot of guys that are heavily valued by ESPN ranking sheets, by CBS Sportsline ranking sheets, by the magazines. And so I will try to cover some of those guys too. So it's not just going to be undervalued guys. I want to try to cover some overvalued guys that, not to say you don't draft them, but maybe you just stay away a little bit, or maybe given what their draft position is, maybe it's not going to be worth the capital that you want to spend. So that's what the segment is about. And I am excited to present the first guy for this, which he had to be the first guy because he's a guy that I'm looking at just so heavily this year as the potential for getting a lot of good opportunities. And obviously, if you see behind me, you can see who my favorite NFL team is. And so it pains me. It pains me to bring up a guy who was drafted by the coaching staff that obviously Liam Cohen jumped ship, but Bashil Tutin is the guy. Bashil Tutin is the guy that I want to talk about. And there's a number of reasons why, and I'll go through them all right now. So first and foremost is Tutin was drafted in the 4th round by the Jags, despite the team having 2 capable backs. This is what you always want to look for when you're looking for rookies, is that do they have a bunch of capable guys at that spot, and they've spent high draft capital. High draft capital is the 4th round or above. Mid-round draft capital, or actually anything 4th round or above, for when you have 2 guys that played starter reps last year, is always something that I look at and I say, why did they do that? They had 2 guys. Jacksonville has a million holes to fill across everywhere on both sides of the ball, and they spent it on a running back. Well, I'll explain why in a minute. You also have a new coaching staff. This is a factor that magazines and ranking and dirt sheets and cheat sheets, etc., overlook. It's a new coaching staff with no allegiance to any past players. Obviously, those 2 players being Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby, or really anybody else. So Liam Cohen is new. The GM is new. The whole coaching staff is new. They don't owe anybody from this last regime that was under Doug Peterson a damn thing. And one thing that I've learned, because he was our offensive coordinator last year in Tampa for Liam Cohen, is that he's going to do what he's going to do with his running backs, because you had Rachaad White, who had put up at least decent numbers, was part of the Super Bowl team with Brady. And, again, just at least had been putting up normal-ish numbers. And then they went and Cohen talked him into drafting Bucky Irving. And also, as the season went on, used Bucky Irving more and more and more and more. That's what he's going to do. Now, you look at the physical profile for Tutin, and he's 5'9" and 206, so he's got the body. Now, he only got 1 Division I offer, and coming out of high school, and that was to North Carolina A&T. Went there and starred, and then transferred to Virginia Tech. But then you go and you look at what his combine numbers were, and oh my goodness, did this guy pop. He just exploded at the combine, and he has explosive home run potential. Ranked 12th out of all running backs in rush yards over expected, 5th in yards after contact per attempt, 4th in missed tackles forced, 6th in 15-plus yard runs percentage. He also ran a 4.32 40 and had a 9.56 relative athletic score out of 10. Guys that had that type of score coming out of the draft, and I'm not saying that he's the same thing, but I mean, you're talking about like that's getting up into like Alvin Kamara territory. That's getting up into like Saquon Barkley territory for that relative athletic score. So all of the athletic factors are there. Now, with that in mind, they also have some issues with the existing running backs. Travis Etienne spent a lot of last year hurt, and Tank Bigsby filled in at a pretty admirably given the Jags' overall offensive situation. But Etienne averaged 3.7 yards per attempt and 6.5 yards per catch last year. Those are career lows for him. There's been reports from mini camps that he's still not at 100% health. He's better, but he's not like 100% there. And Tank Bigsby just doesn't fit Liam Cohen's scheme as well. I watched Liam Cohen's scheme last year in Tampa, and Bucky Irving was the prototypical running back for it. And Bucky Irving matches up extremely well with Bashil Tutin about physicalness, about explosiveness, his ability to get to the outside. The one thing that I will say about Rachaad White is that Rachaad White is a much better pass blocker than he is pure runner. And he also, he's got okay speed, but he doesn't have that explosive potential where he can just hit a hole and pew, he's gone. Bashil Tutin does, Bucky Irving does. It was like they just cloned Bucky Irving and gave him to Liam Cohen in the exact same round. Cohen loves using his running backs. He loves using them in the passing game, loves using them on little screens, little wheels. For as I roll as I was at the guy for how he left our team, I will say the man knows how to get production out of his running backs. Bucks ranked 4th in rushing in 2024. And as I said, Bucky Irving was a 4th round pick also. So if you're drafting Tutin, obviously he should go much higher in dynasty drafts because he is probably the running back of the future if Liam Cohen is going to be around in Jacksonville for a while. The way that the Khan family has been with coaches, it's probably very, very likely that he will be because they gave Doug Peterson probably one more year than he should have gotten. So, and with the contract that they signed for him, it's probably a fair bet that Liam Cohen will be around for at least 3 years, maybe longer, depending on if they have success or not. So what this tells me is that when you draft a guy in the 4th round, despite having 2 guys that played starter reps in various points last year, that tells me that that's who you think is your future. And so I'm not saying that ETN won't get reps. I'm not saying that Bigsby won't get in. But what I'm saying is that they did not draft this kid in the 4th round to sit on the bench. They drafted him to be explosive and play the Bucky Irving role that was played last year. So who's going to be who's going to suffer the most from this? The biggest person I think will suffer is Tank Bigsby. I've already told VIP this. I would not bother with Tank Bigsby in fantasy drafts this year. And if you're drafting ETN, wherever you think his draft value is, which personally I think is probably in snake drafts in the 6th or 6th round, maybe 5th or 6th is probably where he's going to go. I would drop that down to the 7th or the 8th. What I would actually look to do is in the 10th or 11th in the early double-digit rounds, I would look to take this kid. And I would also look to potentially stack on RBs, get at least 3 RBs who you can rotate in and out. They don't have to be studs, but they can. So if you have running back and wide receiver with your first 2 picks, 2 studs, right? Is that you can get another running back who's decent starter level, a RB3 for depth, and then a little bit later you can take Tutin, and especially in PPR leagues because of how much Cohen uses his running backs in the passing game. So the only issue that I will say, because I like to be fair here, is that he is a kid and he hasn't dealt with NFL pass blocking before. And that was something that Bucky Irving had to learn before he earned those starter reps. So it might be week 3 to 4 before he starts getting any meaningful reps, barring an injury, of course. Now, what also I will say is that he did have fumbling issues in college. He did have issue. He fumbled 9 times over the last 2 seasons at Virginia Tech. So just be aware, because if you put the ball on the ground, I don't care how much the coaching staff loves you, you ain't going to play. So it's something to watch in camp. But he's a guy you can get in the double-digit rounds, and he's a guy who can pay off at I would say his ceiling is mid-tier RB2 numbers, which if I told you that you could get a mid-tier RB2 in the 10th, 11th, or beyond, maybe even the 12th or 13th round when guys are taking kickers and defenses, you would take that 100 times out of 100, and that's the potential this kid has. I play dynasty leagues mostly, so I'm looking so heavily at this kid in dynasty formats, and would love to get him on at least a few of those teams. So we have a couple Couple comments about this. We have ES Gooner saying, can't wait for foosball. You and me both. You're going to see a ton of football content coming out, by the way. Ton of football content coming out. We got a whole bunch of stuff coming out. Gooner saying Bucky is beast. Yes, he is. I love that kid. I love that kid so much. And obviously, you know, because the team he plays for, but love the kid. And Kid Keon saying I have Baker Mayfield for fantasy. I think he goes crazy. Yes, Baker has sky high potential. The only thing that I would look for, his value is downgraded a little bit in leagues that take away points for interceptions, just because he is working with another new offensive coordinator. So there could be some turnovers a little, but his overall ceiling is sky high. And the fact that they drafted Igbuka in the first round, despite having Godwin coming back and signing the big deal and reportedly being healthy, and Evans, is that tells me that they're going to be that there's going to be a lot of air yards this year for the Bucks. Gunnar saying Baker is a gamer. Yep, Godwin should come back strong. I wouldn't be surprised if Godwin starts a little bit slower. He's still not 100% in game shape yet from reports that I've seen, and I'm obviously linked with a lot of insiders to the Bucks. But he is so game shape and being fully recovered. So he has camp to get through that. The other thing is, when you have Evans and Igbuka on the outside, you also have Godwin is able to run the majority of his routes in the slot. So what I really like Godwin for is PPRs, because the one thing that that is an issue, or has been an issue with Baker, throughout his career, is that he holds the ball too long, and he tries too long to extend plays and to try to force things, and he won't give up on plays. And that's who he is as a player, and I love him for it, and I love his competitive spirit. But it's something that whenever it's more than that, like 2 or 3 second window, I cringe, because I'm like, oh God, is he gonna just say fuck it, I'm drawing up plays in the dirt? That's the only issue with Baker that can lead to turnovers. But as a player, I love him, and I am just so thankful that he is my quarterback. Tootin Sean Tucker at a minimum. I would even say I would say higher than Sean Tucker, just because of where he was drafted and the coaching staff loves him. But I understand what you're going with, Gunnar. And Cover Kings, one more thing about football, saying I think Derrick Henry will be a bust. Interesting. I mean, a lot of miles on the tires. I like to spend mini camps and OTAs really digging deep on guys that have the high upside. I don't really get into super in depth into what I think the proven vets will do up until we get into training camp, which is right around the corner. So that's Bashil Tootin. You will get, again, one of these per week, and it won't always necessarily be guys that I think will outperform their draft stock. It'll be guys that I think that could potentially underperform as well, because you only have so many draft picks, and every draft pick that you spend on an overvalued guy is potential for you to miss a guy like this. So, all right. So hope you enjoyed that. We will be covering that more going forward, and other looks and other sides. I did see the comment from Ty. Welcome in, Ty. Thank you so much for joining. Asking about Marlins or Twins. So let me for that. I would personally go, if you're going full game, I would go with Marlins. There's been a pretty heavy move here for the towards the Marlins. They opened at plus 115 and are now down to minus 102, despite 45% of the bets and only 45% of the bets being on them. So that's a pretty significant move down, because you have a 17-cent move with 55% of the bets being on the Twins. So if you're looking for a value play on the money line for the full game, I don't really have a take on the first 5, as I think somebody else posted that there's a first 5 look, but definitely, if you're looking full game, the Marlins money line would be where I would look. Other money lines that I happen to have leans on that could potentially have value tonight: the Brewers at plus 136, and I think that was it for. And the Blue Jays at plus 110. Those would be the only ones. Blue Jays, I actually think it's a pretty even matchup today, pitching wise. But I think whenever you have a home dog in a divisional game like this, when the other team doesn't have an overpowering pitcher, I think that there's value on the money line there. So for totals, the Marlins and the Twins, the under here for sure. I think that the full game under 8 definitely has value. We already talked about the first 5 and about team totals under. And then the Royals and the Mariners, even with the change to Logan Evans, still think there's value on the under 7.5 in that one. And I think that'll do it. So, all right. Man, it feels so good to be back. Feels so good to be back, and thank you all so much for coming back. So there will be many, many more of these. We're back on a normal schedule now. So I hope that everybody has a safe, fun, and happy 4th of July weekend. I hope everybody enjoys. Again, you'll be, I'm still coordinating about if I'll just do a show by myself tomorrow or if I'll be going on with Sharpie just because it is a holiday and it's the 4th of July. So want to say thank you to everybody in the chat. Say thank you to Kid Keon, Eric J, Mario, Cover Kings, Trying to Rob FanDuel, LJ, Black Thor, Justin, Andrew, Berg, ES Gooner, Ty, I think I said Justin, and Slim. I think I got everybody. Big numbers for the return show, so I appreciate it. Hopefully gave you some good content today. And again, if you aren't, please subscribe to the Daily Bread Network on YouTube. Please follow me at Spin Doc Sports on X. Like the video, give us a share, give us a follow. We do appreciate it. Back more in some fashion, some capacity with more content tomorrow. I will let you know what that is very soon. Best of luck in all your action today. See you then.